When we talk about the idea that we're all content creators, the next myth of social media, I want us to be cautious and exercise a little bit of restraint in thinking about this myth, because we can't assume that the internet or social media is a unified thing. Now, on one hand, when we put our media studies student hat on, that idea might seem obvious. Of course, we know that, the internet is made up of many different platforms and you do many different activities or engage in many different activities with social media. This introduces the idea of affordances. So we use different technologies for different things. And that brings us to the idea of affordances. So the ways in which the properties of an object, in this case, social media, influence what you can do with it. So the fact that social media, even though we talk about social media as a unified set of platforms in everyday conversation, and you might see it spoken about that way in the media, we actually use different social media platforms for very different things. Now, this table is from a study into the motivations for using social media platforms amongst college students. So it's a sample that's equivalent to you all. So it's highly relevant in terms of the affordances that this research demonstrates in relation to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. So the reference is to the article, if you want to look it up in the library, is there. So it was a large-scale study of US college students that looked at the motivations for using various social media platforms. And although we can see that they're roughly similar across all four platforms, we definitely do use different social media platforms for different things based on what they allow us to do. So the ranking of particular affordances are different across each platform. In the module on the shape of the Australian media, what does the Australian media look like, we made the point that we use the internet for pretty mundane, for pretty everyday, for kind of boring activities. We are not all bloggers. We are not all creating videos that we put on YouTube, but we need, in an era of mass social media use, we need to think about the idea of what actually counts as content creation. So a blog obviously would fall into that category. But what about a YouTube video? So what's the difference between uploading a YouTube video that we create ourselves as opposed to stealing a bit of television from our favorite show, from Game of Thrones, for argument's sake, and posting it on the internet? Are we still creating content when we upload someone else's content to YouTube? What's the difference between a Facebook and an Instagram post in terms of how it might qualify as a form of content creation? Again, a tweet. Is retweeting or liking a tweet or liking a Facebook or Instagram post, does that qualify as a form of content creation? That's probably stretching the definition a little bit. But the point I want to make is that in an era of mass social media use, platforms and apps make it increasingly easy to create content without any technical knowledge. Once upon a time, in order to have a blog, you needed to know HTML. You know, there weren't apps that allowed you to create a website in the same way that you would use a word processor. You had to have technical knowledge in order to do that. And that increasing ease with which we can become content creators is important for the monetization of social media content. So in order to have Instagram influencers, you need to make it easy for people to upload information, photos to Instagram. You need to be able to have a set of features that include filters, that include the ability to alter photos to make them look more appealing if you are going to monetize that content.